Recording. All right, fantastic. So let's get going. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Chelsea Kelman. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, how I ended up working with inventory management. I am an Amazon seller and have been since 2014. And inventory is a headache that started affecting my business. I started really affecting my business about beginning of 2018. And that's when I sort of became very interested in learning about how I could control some of those factors. And it ended up turning into this business that is called Restock. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So that we can get started. All right, let me know that you can see that. I want to make sure that everyone can see the slides. Essentially, we're talking about inventory strategies for restock limits and supply chain chaos. There's a lot of things going on with supply chain. Everyone's been suffering from the effects of restock limits. So it's more important than ever to really build your inventory systems to maximize your profit and avoid stocking out and also overstocking. And one of those things that you can do, I'm getting more and more interested in how to save money. We won't talk in this particular webinar about the money saving strategies, but it's something I'm really looking into right now. And so in the coming weeks and months, we'll be focusing a lot on, what are those things that we can do to make sure that we're not paying more for inventory as all of these intermediaries, all of these third parties start coming in to help us control our inventory because of the restock limits. How can we control our costs as well? So all of those things are part of this overall conversation, but we're going to be focused on logistics and forecasting today. All right, so we're going to talk about key inventory systems that you need to develop a plan for inventory to avoid stocking out and overstocking, some of the most expensive things that happen in your business. 3 triggers that you can pull if you do stock out. So if you do stock out at Amazon, what are those things that you can do to ensure that your restock limits don't crash? And then I'm going to talk about a restock limits hack that some sellers have used to double their limits overnight. Some of you may be aware of this, some of you may not be. And so I'm going to bring it up and talk about, has it been successful recently? Who has it been successful for? And that type of thing. And then I want to present to you a solution to help you implement these things quickly. I always like to give you something that you can walk away and actionably apply, whether you're using Restock or not, but then also introduce you to why I created Restock in the first place, which was really to solve my own problems as an Amazon seller and also all of the people that were still using spreadsheets because there wasn't anything else out there. And then we'll, of course, go into question and answer time. All right, so a little bit about me. Like I said, I've been selling on Amazon since 2014, and I started mentoring in some top Amazon groups in 2016, started speaking on stage and in podcasts in 2017 about copywriting. So still have a copywriting agency, work every day with Amazon sellers as well as being an Amazon seller myself. And then now I speak primarily on the subject of inventory management best practices. And I'll explain a little bit why I have been able to be kind of front and center on understanding how inventory management works and why there are certain things that Amazon sellers need to do to be able to properly handle their inventory. So I've been featured on podcasts, AMPM Podcast, spoken at events like Seller Summits, Seven-Figure Seller Summit, the Amazing Seller Summit, and many other podcasts that you may have discovered me on. All right, so in 2018, like I was saying, my profits started declining, and I wanted to find out what that was. I have a background in accounting, spent 4 years at a financial management firm, and so numbers were very important. I wanted to trace back the numbers of what was going on. Some things in inventory management that became big impacts were things like inventory getting stranded at Amazon and lost until after Christmas. That was a difficult one early on in my business. Stocking out for a month at a time every now and then, and losing income on top sellers, over ordering product and paying thousands in storage fees and loan interest. All of these things were really cutting into my bottom line. And sometimes when you feel like the inventory just needs to get there and you need to get your product live, you're willing to do anything, especially today, to make that happen so that your business is not affected. But what seems like a good idea in the short term can often end up being very difficult when you go to file your taxes and you notice that, you know, how much money did I actually make this year? Why are my profits going down each year? So proper inventory management helps to prevent that. I call it death by paper cuts, prevent that death by paper cuts. And so that's really what I wanted to do, is to help to get more money back into the pocket of Amazon sellers. So I tried to build my own solution starting out. It was 2 times consuming. I was doing a lot of spreadsheets, then tried other softwares back in, this is 2018. Way too confusing, couldn't understand how the algorithm, it worked for some products, not for other products. And then other ones were just way too expensive. Wanted to charge $2,000 per month at the base amount. And so basically went to my friends in my masterminds and asked, what are you using? The same answer was, we've tried everything, nothing works, we're back to spreadsheets. And that was when I decided that I was going to build my own solution. So building Restock, essentially, we've been obsessing about inventory management for about 3 years now. And I've personally worked with literally hundreds of Amazon sellers one-on-one to solve their problems. And in the process, discovered some of the most common mistakes that even 7- and 8-figure sellers are actually making, that is making the problem worse for them. So what we've basically done is built relationships with a lot of sellers that we now actually work with directly, who help to give us feedback so that we can build the tools and the systems that are needed, especially with the changing climate of both Amazon and the global supply chain. We're now the #1 choice of many different top Amazon influencers, masterminds, agencies, and also aggregators. So for staying to the end, I just wanted to give you a little gift for staying to the end of this presentation. We're going to be giving you the DIY inventory spreadsheet. So if you're not a Restock user and you have, say, a couple of SKUs and you're just getting started, this would be a great way to get started. Is this DIY spreadsheet. Also good for anybody, inventory-minded marketing planner. I'm going to talk a little bit about why this is so important. It essentially syncs up your marketing and your inventory teams, along with a workflow checklist to sync up your marketing, your inventory, as well as your cash flow. And then we have our inventory management SOPs. So even if you are, this is built specifically for Restock. So if you are using Restock right now and you have not received this is something that you will receive and you should be implementing with your team. If you aren't using Restock, it is just a very helpful guide for how inventory management flow across departments should be working. All right, so let's go ahead and start talking about why you actually came here, which is to understand inventory management better and understand what those systems are to put in place. So it essentially breaks up into 3 things. There's calculation, tracking, and logistics. And I like to consider that even though inventory management is a very complex subject, there's a lot of things, a lot of variables that can affect the outcome. It breaks down into just a couple of things that you want to know. You want to know how much, right? How much do I order? By when do I order? And then lastly, logistics comes in after that. That's the forecasting. How much and by when is forecasting. And the logistics is, okay, now that I know how much and by when, how do I actually get there on time, right? And how do I make sure that, my orders are received on time, my transfers are received on time, that I never run out of stock. And that's the logistics side. So we're going to talk about calculation. We're going to start with talking about calculation first. And really the crux of calculation is to make sure that you're calculating your velocity correctly. Some people are still using total monthly sales, right? They're looking at, okay, I got to place my Christmas order. Last Christmas for this product, I sold 40,000 units from Black Friday to Christmas. So that's what I need to order. That can cause some problems. So what we do is called daily adjusted velocity. It's taking an average of a specific period of time and calculating what the daily velocity or the daily sales was, but adjusting it for things like sales spikes and stockouts that are not going to occur again. So we're going to go through a couple of reasons why this is important. So you would be using your averages, right? Not your total monthly sales. You can also use averages by looking at last year's sales as well. And then what you want to do is make sure that there are no sales spikes, stockouts, or deep discounts that are not going to be repeating themselves. And that's why we call it adjusted velocity. So daily adjusted velocity. Essentially, it means your true velocity. What would you have sold if you hadn't had, Oprah Winfrey mention you on her show or something like that, or if you hadn't stocked out because you miscalculated your last order, what would you have sold if these anomalies had not occurred, right? And then once you have that daily adjusted velocity, you can also do things like incorporating growth trends, right? Maybe I have increased my sales 10% from last year to this year. That would be a growth trend. But we want to focus first on the daily adjusted velocity and making sure that that number is correct. So accurately factoring in your non-recurring sales spikes and stockouts. And I say non-recurring because some people have lightning deals that they do every week or every month. Those would not be things that you would want to remove because those are continuing to occur in your business. But those non-recurring sales spikes and stockouts, if this data is not correct, your calculation is going to be wrong. And essentially, it becomes very difficult when you're just using Amazon's downloadable reports to actually locate this data. The data is a lot more accessible when using the Amazon API. So that's something to know. There are other ways to do it, which I will address, but the easiest way is to use a system that is properly calculating it for you. If you do end up stocking out or overstocking, it ends up wasting a lot of your money. So here's a case study on why this is so important and how the stockout algorithm is key. This is one of the first things that we developed and talked about 3 years ago when we started developing the strategies for figuring out velocity. So there was a 7-figure seller that came to us, started using Restock after years of using another software. While he was using the other software, he kept stocking out on his best sellers. So with those best sellers, he created his own spreadsheet and his own calculation to improve the accuracy. But using both of these systems, he was still stocking out. So we decided to come to Restock and see, what is it that Restock is going to tell me about my velocity? And he almost didn't believe it. He had to really dig into the data to understand why he was being told to order much more than these other two systems were telling him. So I wanted to walk through exactly what that was. So here is what the competing software was telling him. It was telling him that his velocity was 8 units a day. And so if he were to order 8 units a day, when he was actually, his true velocity was 15 units a day, when we actually applied the daily adjusted velocity, he was running out, he would run out 4 days into his weekly order. His custom spreadsheet he calculated was 10 units a day. And then he was running out by the 5th day. But when Restock looked at the data, decided that this was actually the true velocity was 15 units a day. And so his weekly order, he could avoid a stock out because he was actually accurately predicting what his velocity was. So here's why this happens. So there's 2 things that have to be factored in. The first one is, did you have stock? And like I said, this is something that can, this can be pulled historically from the API. So we can tell when we pulled API data if you had inventory up for that product or not. If you do not have an API pull to get that data, is something that you should be tracking. So when you do stock out on something, you should have a stock out log, which is something that I include in the DIY spreadsheet that I will be giving you. But this is a tedious process. It's something that you have to follow up on and pay attention to on a regular basis. And as you get into more and more SKUs, it becomes a little bit unwieldy. The second is that there is, you need to be able to know if there was an unusual interruption in your normal sales. So an unusual interruption to normal sales could be that you had not zero sales, you didn't run out of inventory on that day, but you had lower sales because the start of the day you had inventory, but by the end of the day you had stocked out. So lower sales on the day of stock out, lower sales on the day coming back into stock. Also, Amazon finds 1 or 2 units during your stock out, where all of a sudden you have, you know, 0 sales and then you make 1 sale because Amazon decided to clean up a shelf or something like that. Or your sales are interrupted by a listing suspension. The data says you have inventory, but if your listing is suspended, you're not selling anything. So that should not be factored as a sales day. So when you're looking at your averages, if you're not factoring these things in, you can get into a lot of trouble. And that's what some of these systems have been causing. So the major error is only checking for, did you have stock? Now, this is how this works. So if we look at what one software would do, you're selling 100 units a day. And when you stock out, for a lot of these calculations, it's counting that the day that you stock out as an in-stock day. So it's counting, let's say it's counting 23 units as an in-stock day. That is going to make your average drop much lower. Then you've got these days where there are 0 sales, and that's counted as a stock out. And then you have this 1 unit that's sold. So instead of 100 units, you sold 1 unit that day. What that's going to do to a 30-day average is pretty impactful. So that is being factored in on some of these calculations. Then you have more stock outs, and then you come back in stock at the end of the day and sell 13 units, and that's counted as in stock. So what happens inside of our calculation is that all of these are low enough that we know it's something, there's something wrong. And so this triggers us to count these as a stock out. We factor these as stock outs. So when you look at your in-stock days, out of 30 days, the competing formula was calculating 26 in-stock days, and we were calculating 23 in-stock days. We got an average of 100 units per day, whereas this scenario runs an average of 90 units per day. So you're going to be short 10 units or 10 sales per day, and you're going to run out of stock if you are using this calculation. Now, take this calculation and compound it over however long your lead time is or however large your orders are. That can be, that's a 10% loss of sale. That's a pretty devastating impact, especially with supply chain being as difficult to speed up or expedite to solve those problems. All right, and feel free to jump in, ask any questions if you do have them. You can either do it in the chat or in the Q&A section. There is a lot of data, so it's kind of drinking from a fire hose, but you will get the recording. All right, inventory-minded marketing. This is something that we started talking about the more I talked to Amazon sellers and realized that there was a disconnect. We grew up as marketers, and so we focused on marketing, but never had a system to model out those marketing strategies with our inventory, to look at what our marketing plans are and see how that's going to affect our inventory over time, and will that cause us to stock out. I've had 7- and 8-figure sellers stock out because they had some marketing hack that they tried without vetting it against their inventory. So we started talking about inventory-minded marketing. And the marketing team, because of restock limits, has now had to take the responsibility of marketing across the entire product line. You can no longer simply market your best products and wait for the other ones to sell out. You actually have to become responsible for the entire catalog. So inventory-minded marketing is becoming a lot more crucial than it ever has been before. Good marketing plan can turn bad really, really fast, especially nowadays, if it's so successful that it stalks you out. So we're going to talk about a couple of the different coordination points. We're going to talk about the last 4 later on, but right now I want to just focus on marketing plans. So essentially the inventory team needs to give, or the marketing team needs to give the inventory team marketing plans to be able to vet out before execution, right? So it has to be this kind of approval or coordination process. Here's one of the things that we use to help to do that. It's something that the marketing team can use, plug in information, and then that can go to the inventory team. The inventory team then plugs all of this information in and then can run a report to see, will this actually stock out any one of my products? Is this going to be a problem? Then the inventory team can go back to marketing and say, this is great. You can't do it with this SKU. This SKU is going to run out of stock. Hold off, and I'll let you know when the SKU is back in stock and has enough inventory to actually participate in this marketing campaign. So it's as easy as that. Otherwise, you're spending money on advertising that is costing you a stock out when you could make full price sales rather than spending on coupon codes or PPC. It ends up saving money in the long run. So here's a couple of things we've got that this covers: velocity, adding trend and additional sales growth, which is great for planning out PPC strategies, lightning deals and sales events, and then seasonal spikes, like percentage increase or decrease. So on the subject, to wrap up on sales velocity, we had someone write in about sales velocity, and he said that ignoring stockouts for sales velocity to ensure that it does not decrease was a huge factor in helping his velocity to be much more accurate, and that he was able to already save thousands of dollars in profit just based on the fact that he was able to keep his inventory in stock by placing accurate orders. All right, so let's talk about tracking. And if you recall, we said that tracking was by when. It helped us to figure out by when. If we don't properly track where all of our stuff is, it's going to be a problem for when do we actually place this order. One of the things that was surprising beyond forecasting was people wanted to know when they started coming into SoStock, where is my stuff, right? They wanted to be able to track everything. So tracking everything is important for placing your orders, and you cannot rely on your warehouse to track things for you. They might do an okay job, but we have had in the past year different warehouses who have told us they've had more inventory than they have or less of inventory than they have. Either way, that's going to cause you problems. You're either going to over order because you don't think you have inventory that you actually do have, or you're going to under order. And either one of those things is an issue. So you have to have a system to be able to audit that information, because we had then using SoStock, we had tracked our inventory to send back and say, no, you have that inventory there, go find it, or no, you don't have that, you already sent it, please update your records, right? So there are several different ways that you should be tracking your inventory. And all of these, I'll show you examples of these. This is something that, if you're not using SoStock, you can build this out on a Kanban or build it out in a spreadsheet, but these are some of the key ways that we generally encourage being able to track your inventory. So one of them, this is an order tracker, right? We break it down into in production, en route, third-party warehouse, FBA check-in. You can also include things like customs or prep center. We also have these as well. We've just kind of hidden those columns for this demonstration. And then you can show all the information that you need about the particular order. Then you have inventory on hand. You want to know everything in FBA and everything in all of your warehouses, the total warehouse stock. And this can also be broken down into the inventory on hand for a particular marketplace. So, USA, UK, Europe, etc. And then you have inbound shipments. This is just another view of, similar to the order tracker, inbound shipments, just in a spreadsheet or a column view. Then you have your warehouse levels. Each one of these is a warehouse, and it will show you how much inventory you have for each of your products in each warehouse and how much is on the way. then orders in the next 30 days. So orders in the next 30 days is simply a filter to show what orders actually need to be placed within the next 30 days so that you can have a quick reaction and a quick view of what needs to be done. All right, so when we're trying to actually figure out when to reorder, right? When do we actually place that order? The calculation is fairly simple. The only thing is that you need to know when you're going to stock out, right? So the calculation is this: you need to have your buffer stock, you add your buffer stock and your lead time, and that creates a reorder point. So we're going to talk about what these two things are, and then I'm going to show you how that works. So buffer stock is also known as safety stock. This is the extra inventory that you have just in case a problem arises. Recently we had a problem where one of our products was metal and it had condensation inside of the packaging, and so they had to get that new piece sent from the raw material provider, and it caused a delay. If you don't have a buffer stock, that's a real big problem. So having a buffer stock, making sure that if anything goes wrong, if there's off the coast of China, you have a hurricane and things can't get out of the port in time, all of these types of things, right? Buffer stock is important, and I'll talk to you about the guidelines for buffer stock. So the longer the lead time or the transfer time, the higher the buffer stock. This is something that has been having to increase. Buffer stock can be held at FBA or your warehouse. Most likely should be held at your warehouse. Could be your warehouse in China. At least some of it should be in a local warehouse that you can just ship into FBA. But it's important to have enough buffer stock so that you have enough leeway to weather those storms that are seeming to pop up every other week, right? I like to encourage people to use buffer stock in days rather than in number of units. And this is something commonly people who have buffer stock, they're using number of units. But when you have a system that can calculate your daily adjusted velocity, number of days becomes very important, because that way you're able to be flexible, because you may need a lot more buffer stock during your high season than you do, say, in your low season, right? Low season, 300 units might be fine, but your high season, that might be 10 days worth of inventory. Also, Amazon has something called Geo Ranking, where once you start running out of stock, they're going to start lowering your ranking in certain areas, and they're going to start maybe turning off PPC in certain areas for you, because not turning them off, but not awarding you the bids. And this is because if they don't think that they can ship your inventory to the customer on time, they don't want to encourage the customer to buy the inventory. So you may have a ton of stuff in California, but you've got not a lot of inventory in the Midwest, because Amazon doesn't have a lot of inventory to disperse throughout the country. So that's what geo ranking is Amazon not having enough inventory and starting to kind of pull back on promoting your product because they can't meet those prime deadlines. So a good rule of thumb, this is sometimes not possible, especially with people who are in oversize. Oversize has been hit pretty hard with its restrictions. A good rule of thumb is a minimum of 30 days of buffer stock, if that is possible. 45 days actually nowadays has been something to strive towards, just because Amazon check-in times have been very unpredictable. So, some people do strive for 45 days, but can't be done with all of your products and can't be done with all accounts. So something just keep in mind. All right, lead times and transfer times. So you've got lead times and transfer times. Lead times are how long it takes from your supplier to get to the final destination. Transfer times is how much it takes for the warehouse to send it into Amazon, for it to be live on Amazon, right? It's important to verify that you have accurate lead times very, very constantly. If you're not asking at least, I would say once a month, or even more than that, asking your suppliers, asking your warehouses and your freight forwarders about lead times, about how long things are taking, you can have a really difficult time, and you can be surprised by how long things are taking. Right now, China is experiencing controlled power outages. They're curbing power in, it used to be in the south of China, and now it's kind of rolled out to countrywide. So we've had our suppliers say, order sooner, because certain factories are not allowed to use their power. Some of them are running on backup generators, and some of them only have 1 day worth of power that they're able to utilize. So there's a lot of chaos going on. It's going to take a lot longer. When your power is reduced in that way, it's going to take a lot longer for orders to be fulfilled. So if you haven't sat down and figured out your orders for Chinese New Year to send out before Chinese New Year, now would be the time. But lead times, essentially, it's just very important all along the line to ask your vendors and your distributors how long things are taking, and start increasing those timelines as needed. All right, so just to kind of go into a scenario. So if you had 30 days of buffer stock, and then you had 60 days of lead time, which is, wishful thinking nowadays, but it is what it is. If you had 30 plus 60, then you would have 90 days that you would need to reorder before stock out. So this gives you almost everything that you need to know when you need to reorder, right? Since we have our calculation, we know what our velocity is. Our velocity can help us to inform our 30-day buffer stock, our 60-day lead time, and our reorder point. The only thing that's missing is what we talked about, which is tracking. You need to know, based on all these data points, when you're going to stock out. So this is something that we created. This is something that I encourage everyone to integrate into their system, especially when they're trying to visualize out these inventory situations, right? It's an inventory timeline. Look at, what do you have in your warehouse? When do you need to transfer it over? When do you need to place an order? When are you going to stock out? This will actually show you, if you turn off your orders, it'll actually show you when you're going to stock out, so that you can calculate that reorder point. If I need to reorder 90 days before I stock out, when am I actually going to stock out? All right, so here's a case study. A user had a pattern of ordering too late, and everything was being shipped via air, right? Expensive air shipments, simply from not having systems to track and alert for reordering. So once the systems were put in place, the results were actually pretty impressive. The seller went from going air shipments to getting to do sea shipments a lot more often, because the control was put in on when to reorder. The buffer stock was put in, the lead times were made accurate, and the seller went from paying $1.20 per unit via air to only about 45 cents per unit via sea. This is something that saved 63% of shipping costs, and calculated over the entire year, over the entire account, was an annual savings of $150,000 in shipping costs. Obviously, it's a larger account, but any additional money, any thousands of dollars that you can put back into your business for launching new products, for marketing, for those types of things, you're just throwing them away if you have to use these alternative methods. And sometimes it's necessary, but we want to try to make it limit that as much as possible. All right, so this is another seller who basically talks about streamlining processes and getting real-time visibility. So this seller also avoided a lot of expensive air shipments. All right, so let's talk about the third pillar, which is logistics. And this is becoming a more and more popular subject of mine. I am diving into this more and more and learning more about this, because I think that of everything, this is probably the thing that we are all having a crash course in right now, and not understanding it to the fullest extent is becoming a little bit detrimental. And so it's becoming my mission to understand more and more logistics and the billing side of things, and how that process works and how to streamline it. So let's just kind of dive in and talk about logistics, and just know that this is becoming fast one of my favorite subjects from an inventory side of things. And so you'll probably see a lot more content from us about how to streamline logistics, especially from a cash flow perspective. All right, so global supply chain and restock limits are two of the biggest reasons why we're having such problems. Now that all of this is happening, rearranging your logistics is the only way to really safeguard your business against potential income loss. So let's talk about first the storage type limits and how the storage type limits work. I'm going to talk about it with the caveat that Amazon has these guidelines. They have, this is how this works, this is what is important to us, and then they have what I call the oh shit lever, which we all see pulled every now and then, where all of a sudden you wake up and your limits are tanked, and your stats have been fantastic, you've been hitting all the metrics, but all of a sudden you are not able to send in as much inventory as you thought you were going to be able to. So we're going to know that Amazon has these guidelines, and then also that Amazon breaks these guidelines. So just kind of take this with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Just because Amazon suspends your listing doesn't mean you should stop trying, to rank and convert. So that's the way that I look at understanding how Amazon views storage type limits and inventory, and that we want to always use the best practices, even if Amazon doesn't always play by the rules that they set out. So first is to understand that Amazon never intended to be a storage facility. They always intended to be a distribution center, right? I always like to understand what's in it for Amazon. Why is Amazon doing this from a business perspective? And they want to get back to being a distribution center. They don't want to hold all of the bad products that you decided to launch that never ended up, taking off. They want you to get rid of those. And this is their way of doing that. So sell-through is actually one of the most important inventory metrics for Amazon. If you think through the inventory performance index, sell-through touches all of those 4 components, right? So your FBA rolling 90-day sell-through rate is the number of your units sold and shipped over the past 90 days divided by the average number of units available at fulfillment centers during the time. This is Amazon's definition. You can find it on the inventory, in the inventory section of Amazon's dashboard, right? So let's see what that really means. So you're taking how many units were sold and shipped in 90 days, and then you're taking how much inventory you had on average sitting at the FBA warehouses, and you're multiplying, you're dividing one against the other. So if you sold 9,000 units and you held 3,000 units on average, your monthly turnover would be 3. If you sold 9,000 units and you held 9,000 units, you would have a turnover rate of 1, right? So when you see that number, when you see that sell-through number inside of your inventory metrics, you can now understand that that's based on your 90 days. And this is the formula that's used. So a monthly turnover rate would be a 3. A quarterly turnover rate would be a 1. So you can kind of understand where you fall in that. All right, and utilization. Utilization, we want to understand how exactly they calculate that. I'm going to go through this rather quickly since I believe most people at this point understand all of this, right? So you have your FBA available inventory, you have all incoming shipments, working, in transit, receiving, you have your unfulfillable inventory, and all of that is part of your utilization quantity, right? So that is how Amazon is looking at your data. Right? Pending removal orders and reserved inventory are said not to be included, but we have seen reserved inventory be included as part of this factor. So you see that utilization is your average units available, and that's how utilization has to do with sell-through. All right, so here's a case study of someone who started really taking control of these things, right? Started turning over their inventory more quickly. And that's something that I would say you could start focusing on to improve things for yourself inventory wise, is turning over inventory more quickly. And you can see that this is someone who went from 1 to 2, basically doubled their turnover rate, and has about 300 SKUs And this is something that will help your IPI limits. If you're having trouble with keeping your IPI score up, it's going to help. If you're having trouble with your restock limits, it's going to help until Amazon decides that, you know, they want to pull that lever that we talked about. But this is something that should always be focused on because it improves your efficiency with your inventory. And this can be focused on not just on Amazon, but overall, right? All right, so let's talk about avoiding stockouts and restock limit crashes. So obviously, stockouts happen, right? So we want to know that when stockouts actually happen, what are we going to do to make sure that our restock limits don't suffer for it? Restock limits will suffer when you stock out. Amazon's only looking at total sales, right? We saw that calculation. It's looking at total sales. It's not looking at what you could have sold if you hadn't stocked out, right? We talked about daily adjusted velocity. Amazon doesn't care about daily adjusted velocity. So you're going to actually be penalized for stocking out based on the restock limits. So the golden rule that I have invited everyone to adopt is don't let anybody have all your stuff. This can be implemented in a couple of different ways. I hear a lot of people stocking out because they put everything LTL on a truck, sent it to Amazon, and Amazon basically dumped it. They dropped the trailer that was full of inventory, and the truck left, and they just didn't unload it, right? There are some companies that are unloading straight into the docks. One of these companies is T-Force. So if you're having trouble with LTL, T-Force might be a good way to look. It used to be UPS Freight, but it was bought out by a Canada company. So T-Force would be a good approach. But overall, don't give all your stuff to one truck, send it into Amazon, and cross your fingers and hope that trailer gets unloaded. Reserve some inventory and send it small parcel delivery if you have to, right? Have something, because small parcel delivery gets sent in and checked in pretty much right away. So that is the benefit of small parcel delivery. It does cost more, but the check-in times are faster. So you can use that as a buffer. Send most of your stuff LTL, and if you have to, only if you have to, send other things small parcel delivery. Reserve things back. Don't spend the money on small parcel delivery if you don't have to, but if you do, you have that option and you're not basically stuck with your inventory being held hostage. Same thing with ocean freight. Hold some inventory back at your suppliers, and if you have to air freight it over because you have your boat stuck in port for 3 weeks, you have the ability to send inventory in. Never letting an ocean freight, never letting Amazon, never letting a truck have all your stuff. Always have a backup plan. So above all, don't stock out, but if you do, here are some of the things that you can do. One is switch to FBM. If you don't have an FBM system set up right now, now is the time. Tomorrow, is it tomorrow? Tomorrow, I believe. Yes, tomorrow is October 1st, the official start of Q4. So get an FBM system. Your current warehouse might supply an FBM system. You will have to get that hooked up so that they can get the data and you can implement that as one of your strategies, or you'll have to find another company that will do that for you. We have some resources for that. So if you're interested in resources, when you get the email that sends the replay, you can hit me up and let me know. Don't let Amazon be your only distribution center. Even if Amazon's your only sales channel, meaning Amazon is the only place that you make sales, it should not be the only place that sends your inventory to your customer. Create an FBM system. Do it now before it's too late. Even if you don't have to use it, do it so that you are ready just in case. The other reason to do that is that FBM sales, in case you didn't know, FBM sales help to keep your restock limit from plummeting. So if you do stock out at FBA and you're still taking on Amazon sales, they're going to count those towards your restock limit because they can see that you're still making sales and you're fulfilling elsewhere. So they're not going to penalize you for not having inventory in FBA. They're going to penalize you for not making sales on their channel, essentially. All right, the second thing that you can do is use excess inventory from other SKUs to run flash sales. So you run out of your top seller. You want to continue increasing your velocity so that by the time your top seller gets back in stock, all of that velocity hasn't been lost, because that velocity being lost will cause your restock limits to potentially plummet. So if you have inventory available, that inventory can either be something you do FBM, right? If you pulled a bunch of inventory from Amazon and you can fulfill it FBM, you essentially are able to sell that inventory through Amazon, right? Run a flash sale or something, run coupon codes, send them something to your email list. That is going to help to bolster the restock limits. The other thing to remember is that your sell-through will increase. Amazon is only counting your utilization as your FBA stuff. So if you're running flash sales that are fulfilling through FBM, then your sell-through rate is increasing, your velocity is increasing, but your utilization is lower because you're not storing that inventory at FBA. So it's kind of a way to improve your sell-through in a little bit of a more tricky way, right? It's a more sophisticated way of being able to do that. So I would recommend, if you have this excess inventory, it might be a good idea to figure out ways to sell these FBM in flash sales. Brief mention of flash sales versus removal orders. Removal orders, you can remove inventory that's not selling. Flash sales is any way that you can get your inventory to sell quickly, right? Removal orders, I recommend if you have no space in FBA and you really need to send some best-selling inventory in, then you do removal orders. Removal orders would be used for immediate use, and removal orders include disposal orders, removal orders, and liquidation programs. Getting that inventory pulled and not having it generate a sale. Flash sales include, any kind of sale that you generate yourself. Outlet deals, you can see if your inventory is eligible for an outlet deal or lightning deals or any sort of deal of the day that Amazon offers. All right, and finally, the other lever to pull is temporarily borrow your sales velocity from your other channels. So if you have Shopify sales, if you switch to have Amazon fulfill those Shopify sales, those orders, those sales that are coming through Amazon, even though they're generated off of someone else, another platform, those are going to count towards your restock limits as well. If that hasn't been known to you, that's something important, because a lot of people pulled their multi-channel fulfillment, their Shopify fulfillment, their Etsy fulfillment, they pulled it off of Amazon when restock limits came into place. So plugging those back in, you're going to actually be rewarded with that traffic from Amazon. All right, we are gonna get through a couple of these really quickly. So I wanted to talk about inventory, the rest of these inventory marketing coordination points, right? Inventory coordination points should include things like stock out risk report, slow sellers report, a liquidation report, overstock report. All of these are reports that the inventory should be sending to marketing weekly or monthly, so that they can help marketing to know what items to push, right? If we want to increase our restock limits and we want to make sure that we don't run out of space for our best sellers, this needs to become an active part of the business. So here's some examples. Stock out risk report indicates the date of the next stock out, how many days the SKU will be stocked out, right? Potential days of stock out, how many days it was stocked out last year, and what the percentage of stock out, right? This product here was out of stock for 29% of the year. So you obviously know that there's some sort of problem with supply chain on this product. It helps you to focus on how to prevent stock outs. Slow seller report. This is something that I recommend setting for yourself. So picking parameters, right? It sells more than 5, but less than 20. That's a slow seller. That would be an alert for marketing to say, we need to either move it or lose it. Can we increase the ranking? Can we make this thing a bestseller? Can we improve this and make it a viable product? And if we can't, we need to move on to the liquidation report. And the liquidation report says, if you can't get it out of that slow seller range and it's below 5% or 5 units per day in daily velocity, or whatever it is for your particular business, if we can't move it, we need to liquidate it. Let's do a flash sale. Let's have a campaign to figure out how to move that inventory as quickly as possible in a way that will help to boost our restock limits. Fba Overstock Report. So this would be something where you look at days of supply on Amazon. Do I have over 90 days of supply with any of my products? These are the ones that you're going to want to start moving, right? Figuring out whether to liquidate these or do flash sales. All right, we're going to talk about a bonus tip, and then we're going to go through a recap very briefly in Q&A and wrap up, because I know we are getting towards the end of the hour. So bonus tip, this is something that has worked. It started working at the beginning of Q3. I'm very curiously following what happens tomorrow, as you will see. But as of last about a week and a half ago, maybe 2, this was something that still seems to be working. I was going to take it out, but because I got recent reports that it was still working, I decided that I was going to keep it in. And it's something that you should try if you haven't tried it yet, and report back to me if something good happens, and I will keep you abreast of what continues to go on with this particular tip. So this tip is about how to increase your restock limits. This is one of our users who's been a long-time user, doubled his units doubled overnight. So he said that he got an email from the multi-channel fulfillment team, and they basically said they doubled his limit until September 30th. So tomorrow is the day that this is supposed to change. So I'm going to reach out to him tomorrow and ask him what happened. But when everyone's restock limits went down, that, about a month ago, when everyone woke up and all of a sudden their restock limits were hacked down, some down to 70% of what they had before, he had no change. He was promised a specific amount and it held for him. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But it is essentially for the use of multi-channel fulfillment. Amazon is saying, we want you to send your Shopify and all of your other channels, connect them up, let us fulfill that inventory. I go into detail on this at sostock.com/restock. So if you're more interested to find out about this and also staying updated as to what is happening with restock limits, any of the tips that we find, go there. But essentially, this is what they instructed him to do. So they said, we doubled your limits. We want you to start sending your off Amazon business through us. If you want more limits, please reach out to multi-channel fulfillment sales at amazon.com and use a copy of your 90-day and send us a copy of your 90-day forecast for MCF and FBA projections to request a higher limit, right? So people started doing this, and this is something that that it worked at .com. It also seemed to work for someone at .co.uk. Worth a try. Like I said, up until 10 days ago, we had this actually working for people still. So this is something they're asking for: your forecast, your projections, not your actual sales. It is possible that they're now going to look at actual sales during that period of time and decide moving forward what they're going to award these people on. But again, I'll report on it at sostock.com/restock. But here's some people. Doubled my limits over the weekend, gave them 90-day projections, and they gave me the exact space that I requested. Got a 50% increase. So this has been working. All right, thank you guys for staying to the end. We are going to get into some Q&A. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Again, look for the email with all of these free gifts for you guys. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Now that I've shown you these systems that you need to implement, I know some of you are using SoStock. I'd like to show you the ways to implement these systems faster. So basically, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about why we built SoStocked. It's a customizable forecasting system. It's built to think like a spreadsheet. So if you're used to using spreadsheets or you're used to being able to understand the data, that's what we built it for, right? We use restock limits. Restock limits is something that we factor into your calculations, right? We use 3 different ways of calculating velocity. So you can choose which velocity you use. Trends, sales spikes factoring, stock out factoring, including MCF sales in your velocity, additional sales growth. Like I mentioned, the inventory timeline is there. We also have order and transfer tracking to be able to track everything in the system. We have custom inventory dashboards. You can set what columns you see. We've got about 80 different columns that you can decide to use or not use, build different reports for the information that you want. And then POs and transfer creation. This is to create POs to quickly send them to your suppliers, to create transfer orders, to quickly send them to your warehouses. This is all stuff that I was doing, and I was like, there's got to be an easier way. And I happened to meet a brilliant software entrepreneur, and he happened to believe that what was in my head was something that would be valuable to people. So that's why we created SoStocked. We've helped so many people, and I really feel like these people are everyone who comes and works with us. It's like a partnership. We're all sellers really just wanting to make this process work more streamlined, easier, get rid of spreadsheets forever, like this guy says, cutting down hours to a few minutes, solving inventory forecasting challenges, making more money. It's my passion to streamline all of this stuff. I know that we're bleeding money right now. I know that we're bleeding in terms of our opportunities. We know that if our systems were tighter, we could be making so much more money. And that's been my big focus and my obsession over the past 3 years, is to help sellers to do that, right? So these are all from reviews that you can read on the Amazon App Store. And we love working with our users. So we've got an intro rate right now. What we're doing is, if you go to SoStock.com and you click on the Get Started link, you'll find a tier of monthly orders. So we charge in monthly orders because we believe we've grown our business, right? We know that as you start out, you need a bit of a gradient approach to being able to use specific software. So as your business grows, we grow with you. So we are sure to control the monthly payments based on your orders. So that's kind of how we have everything structured. But to start out, everyone is priced at $79 for the first month to try the software. We don't do free trials, and the reason that we don't do free trials is because the influx that we would get if we did free trials would just overwhelm us for what we're trying to do. We've just passed our 1,000 users, and we love the personal one-on-one approach. We do one-on-one onboarding. With this special offer, if you're to sign up today with our special offer, there's one thing that we don't offer people who just go to SoStock.com and sign up. But if you order within the next 24 hours of the webinar, I will do a one-on-one personal inventory consultation with you. And then we also offer white glove migration. What that white glove migration is if you have a system or if you have a spreadsheet and you want us to help you transition it over, we will do that for you, right? That'll include helping you to set up your forecast settings, helping you to set up your custom dashboard so you see the data that you want to see. All of that is included. Start with the $79 for the first month. If you don't like it, then there's no contract, there's no commitments. But we've had a ton of people come on board and really get behind us. We love what we do. We love working with you guys. So if you're at all interested, if you have more questions, reach out to me. You can reach me at sostock.com/connect. But I'll go ahead and find out if you have any questions. I'll open up to questions. If you have any questions about the software or about inventory, about logistics, about anything that's going on. I guess I got a question here. We've got repricer, adding product minimum, maximum prices, reconcile PO information. like product URL, PO, etc. Adding products to inventory and creating shipments. We don't have a repricer. That would be a different tool. I know there's a ton of repricer tools out there that people are using. Reconciling PO information like product URL, PO number. I don't quite understand that. Every PO has the list of what products are in that. And then if some of those don't arrive, you can adjust those. You can indicate something's missing or something's damaged, and make sure that it gets added into your inventory properly. And then adding products into inventory. So we do every order that you place through the system, you'll create a PO. And once that PO is placed, it uses your lead time, which can be adjusted later on if anything changes. But what will happen is that once it gets to the end of the lead time, it will then book into your destination location. So if it went to a third-party warehouse, it would record in the third-party warehouse. Then when you make your shipment to Amazon, we don't create FBA shipments and push them to Amazon. You can download a flat file and upload it to Amazon, but that will then pull the inventory out of your warehouse within the Sostock system and be able to track that you've removed that inventory from your warehouse. So all of that warehouse tracking is done inside of the app, unless you're using, say, an outside system, and then you can do bulk uploads for inventory updates. We have a Shopify integration coming out, so anyone who is currently using Shopify, that should be coming out within the next month or so. It's currently in beta. We've got some of our users who are graciously helping us to streamline it for exactly how they want it to work. And we often offer that when we're launching a new product. If you have a particular vested interest in how something works, you can become part of the beta for that particular tool. All right, Patrick says, what is the typical transfer time that people are seeing, as in when it arrives to the FBA center, when it goes back into transfer? So it varies, but when you're doing small parcel delivery, it's been sometimes, depending on where you're shipping from, 3 days, and they'll start counting it and then making it available for sale. And then some is 7 days. Amazon has now started implementing a system. And if you follow our newsletter, which you all should probably, I think, be signed up for, if you signed up for this webinar, we send out a newsletter. It's basically 5 different bullet points. And one of the things that we're going to be pushing pretty soon is Amazon is now adopting a system of being able to better track your inventory to make things live, even if they haven't quite arrived at FBA. So that's a system that you'll want to look into and start testing out and using. But as far as LTD, so less than truckload shipments, depends again on what you're seeing, or what you're using in terms of what supplier, or what trucking company. Some trucking companies are using Amazon Freight, and Amazon Freight used to be great. It used to be amazing, but Amazon Freight is starting to have problems. They're dropping off. They're the ones dropping off the trailers and not unloading them. So it was working, it was a good system, but now we're seeing all this backup. And why I think Amazon pulled that lever that they did is because they've got all of these trailers piling up. So if you use a freight company, like I said, check out T-Force as a freight company. Ask your warehouse about T-Force or anyone else who empties at the dock, right? They might know of some other companies that have an agreement to basically pull their truck up at the dock, empty out their stuff, and then it goes straight into the warehouse rather than dropping it. So those are 2 types of agreements that Amazon has currently right now. And that makes a huge difference. And I think will make a huge difference, especially if you're getting close to the cutoff and shipping your stuff in. These things can be crucial, because we had 4 years ago, before this was even a problem, we had our stuff sent LTL, and it sat there from the I think it was December 6th through almost the new year, where we had our stuff sitting there and it was lost. So the reason is because they drop these trailers and they don't get emptied. So don't allow your inventory to be one of those. It's very important to start having these conversations early on, especially, like I said, as you get closer to the deadline. Okay, Ali asks, is there a BigCommerce integration plan? We are not sure. We have to learn more about what integrations are needed or wanted. If BigCommerce integrates with ShipStation, we're going to be integrating with ShipStation because it integrates with several things. We also are looking at some other platforms such as potentially Pipe 17. But if you want to be involved in that, sending us more information, we basically just poll and find out what are the most important integrations that people are looking for, and how can we integrate with a tool that integrates with multiple different tools at the same time, such as ShipStation. So, but we have been asked that a couple of times, BigCommerce. Okay, there's another one. I meant, is it possible to attach a URL for each product? What repricer would you recommend? I don't know enough about repricers. I did at one point dabble, and I think, trying to remember, Be Cool, I think, was one of the tools, but I'm sure that there are other people in other, say Facebook groups who are doing who are in need of repricing that could say something else. If there's anyone on the call, if you want to type into the chat what you use or what you recommend, but Be Cool, I think it was with a Q instead of a C. In terms of a repricer, we don't have an integration for a repricer at this time. We, maybe something that is open for conversation moving forward. And you said, is it possible to attach a URL for each product? So you can basically edit anything that you want inside of the PO. So if you have the PO and you want to say, this is the size of the box, this is the insert, this is all of the different pieces that are needed. If you want to say, what your cartons are. Cartons is I'm obsessed with the subject of cartons. You'll be hearing from me soon on the subject of cartons. But carton sizes, if you have specific carton requirements, if you want, the thickness of your carton to be a certain way, if you want all of that information to go on your PO, you can put it on your PO. You basically go to the product and you enter information that should appear every time you purchase that product. You want this information to appear on the PO for every different product. It doesn't matter if the PDF that we create is 8 pages long. We don't really care. If you've got the information and it needs to get to your supplier, you can plug it into your system so that it auto populates into the PO at every time. All right, I think looks like we're wrapping up on questions. Let's see, just another couple of fun shares. So we had like this particular seller from hours down to a few minutes. So that's something that we really strive to do, is finding ways to streamline the process so it doesn't take you nearly as long. And we're diving in all the time. We work in our own business, and I'm currently diving into some other aspects of inventory management that take a long time. So as we advance the tool, our job and our obsession is to figure out what are those things that just take forever? What are those back and forths with, emails to your freight forwarder and your supplier? What are the misunderstandings that happen? How can we streamline every part of this process to make it easier? So, we've started with inventory management. We'll be getting into cash flow modeling. We'll be getting into how to streamline the freight costs. All of these things are all facets that we want to improve to help you in terms of your time and your money. So those things are very valuable to us, and I love getting feedback. We seem a lot smarter than we even are because we have a bunch of smart people who reach out to us. They'll send me an email or message me or send an email to our support and give us a bunch of brilliant ideas. So it really is crowdsourcing. The software really has been crowdsourced by a lot of really smart sellers, 6, 7, 8 figure sellers, a lot of influencers, agencies, aggregators. We work with all of them and we talk with all of them. All right, Ali says, is there a list of 3PLs that Restock integrates with for FBM? We don't integrate currently. That's when we get into our ShipStation. So we're launching Shopify, and then ShipStation will be one of the ones that come next. And then we'll be able to, once we integrate with ShipStation, basically the question is, does your 3PL integrate with ShipStation? A lot of different 3PLs integrate with ShipStation, and so that will be one of these integrations that will make things very, very smooth. There are things that we do. There are workarounds that we have in the system for FBM, which if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. But that's one of the things that's coming up on the near roadmap. All right. I don't think anyone has any questions. Looking for, oh, here, let me see. Nope, don't think so. Okay, good. Yeah, I guess there's no more questions, but if you have any questions that come up to your mind, let me know, reach out to me. Again, you can reach me at sostock.com/connect. And you can also visit sostock.com to check out our software to sign up. It's a great time to sign up right now because once the chaos starts, you want to have a really steady system in place. And we actually will do a skip the line for you where we'll, if you sign up within the next 24 hours, we'll get you into an appointment as soon as possible and work with you to try to get your system in place as quickly as possible. So thank you guys so much for coming. I really wish you a great Q4, as chaos-free as possible, and staying in stock and just doing amazingly well. And then also a very, very smooth Chinese New Year. So start working on that. Start working on those projections, placing those orders if you haven't already, and stay in touch. All right, thanks guys.